Raj Shri Gurudev ki jai. Nitya Vishtam Vishnupara Shitarashatashma Shila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Vishtam Vishnupara Shitarashatashma Shila Bhakti Vigyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Vishtam Vishnupara Shitarashatashma Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada ki jai. Nitya Vishtam Mahabhagavat Shila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Vishta Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitya Vishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Nama Chai Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री मुन देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाय की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय राधिकाय प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणति नामिने। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरतिशे नमः। गुरुवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकायै तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तरभक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तम् अनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायन विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस्तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। शृण्वतं स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन वेदान्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतम्। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भगवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नायमां चरणन्तिकम्। भक्त्या विहीना अपराधलक्षय क्षिप्ताष्टकामादितरङ्गमध्ये कृपामयि त्वं शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। भज श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। All right, so let's read from verse 20 to 39. Ajamil chants the holy name of the Lord, he chants the holy name at the time of death, and then we read this first part of the conversation between the Viṣṇudūtas and Yamadūtas. So 20. So to substantiate what Shukadeva Goswami said in verse 19, which says, devotees never see the Yamadūtas, even in dreams. I'll read the whole verse. For persons who only once absorb their mind on Krishna's lotus feet and who have become attracted to his name, form, qualities, and pastimes, do not see Yamaraj or his order carriers with ropes, even in dreams. Such people have accomplished all atonement. To substantiate this, Srila Shukadeva Goswami is now narrating the story of Ajamil. Ajamil chants the holy name at the time of death. In this regard, the wise describe a very old incident involving a discussion between the Viṣṇudūtas and the Yamadūtas. In Kanya-Kubja, there was a Brahmin named Ajamil who married a prostitute maidservant and lost all his good conduct due to her association. He maintained his wife and children by the condemned professions of arresting, cheating and gambling, or directly plundering people. Spending time in abominable sinful activities to maintain his family with his many sons. 88 years of his life passed. He had 10 sons, of whom the youngest was named Narayan, who was very dear to his parents. Because of his broken language and awkward movements, old Ajamil was very much attached to him and enjoyed his activities. Note, even at that old age, Ajamil had a very young child. Yeah, it's pretty bizarre, isn't it? While eating, drinking, and chewing, Ajamil would feed the child and make him drink, always taking care of him and calling his name Narayan. And always calling his name Narayan. Ajamil could not understand that death had arrived. When death arrived, foolish Ajamil thought exclusively of his son Narayan. He saw 3 Yamadūtas who were dreadful, with twisted faces and hairs standing erect, carrying ropes to take him to hell. Note, Ajamil's sins are classified into 3 types: bodily, verbal, and mental. Therefore, 3 Yamadūtas approached him. Interesting. He called out for Narayan. With tears in his eyes and in great anxiety, he loudly called his son Narayan, who was playing nearby. Note, because the name Narayana has 4 syllables, 4 Viṣṇudūtas came. Neat. So that's why 3 Yamadūtas came and 4 Viṣṇudūtas came. Now, the conversation between the Yamadūtas and Viṣṇudūtas. One second, I just want to make sure. I can't actually remember what verse. Okay, yeah, we are doing 40 to 55. Cool. Okay. So the Viṣṇudūtas arrived immediately upon hearing the name and glorification of their master, Lord Hari, from the mouth of the dying Ajamil. Ajamil chanted Narayan due to his attachment to his son. Nevertheless, because of his past good fortune in having rendered devotional service to Lord Narayan, he apparently chanted the holy name in full devotional service and without offenses and complete anxiety. The Viṣṇudūtas stopped the Yamadūtas from dragging Ajamil, the soul, from the core of his heart by forbidding them with resounding voices. Stop! Oh wait, that's not very resounding, is it? Stop! I don't have a very resounding voice. Okay, note A. By speaking loudly, the Viṣṇudūtas threatened to punish the Yamadūtas. Note B.
This verse establishes that the soul is located within the heart. The Yamadūtas replied to the Viṣṇudūtas, "Who are you who challenge the jurisdiction of Yamaraj? Whose servants are you? Where are you from? Why are you forbidding us? Are you demigods, sub-demigods, or the best of devotees?" And then they said, the description of Viṣṇudūtas. "Your eyes are like the petals of lotus flowers. You are dressed in yellow silk garments, decorated with garlands of lotuses, wearing very attractive helmets, wearing beautiful earrings on your ears. Fresh and youthful, you have long arms decorated with bows and quivers of arrows, swords, clubs, conches, discs, and lotus flowers. Your effulgence dissipate to all darkness." Then but why are you obstructing us? The Viṣṇudūta smiled. The order carriers of Lord Vasudev smiled and spoke with voices like rumbling clouds. Note the significance of their smile. You do not know Dharma. Because of fear of us, you say you are servants of Yama, but you are merely a type of ghost. Having come into our hands, how will you live now? Interesting. By the way, a lot of these notes are, I'm not sure of all of them, maybe all of them, but they are from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentaries, and sometimes other acharyas' commentaries. So, yeah, just so you know. And then note B. Both parties were surprised. The Yamadūtas were surprised to see that the Viṣṇudūtas, although polite, were hindering the rule of Yamaraj. Similarly, the Viṣṇudūtas were surprised that the Yamadūtas, although claiming to be servants of Yamaraj, the supreme judge of religious principles, were unaware of the principles of religious action. Thus they smiled. So now we're going to read the Viṣṇudūta's questions to the Yamadūtas. If you are actually the servants of Yamaraj, then explain the meaning of Dharma. And then that's answered in verse 40. And the symptoms of adharma, which is also answered in verse 40. And the process of punishment, which is answered in 45. And who the actual candidates for punishment are, which is answered in verse 43. And whether all karmis are punishable or only some of them, and that's answered in 44. All right. Oh my God, I made a mistake. Anyways, doesn't matter. I wrote this section we're reading is the Viṣṇudūta's answers to the Yamadūta's questions, but it's the other way around. Anyways, I'll just have to fix that later on. Oh, let me see all who's here. 1 second. Dandavat pranams Gargaraji, Ganga Didi, Raseshwari Mataji, Prajumna Prabhu, Mantramurti Mataji, Madhavi Didi. Dandavat pranams. And also Dandavat pranams to Indira Mataji, who will be watching later on. Okay. Yamadūta Uchu Veda Prani Hito Dharma Ya Dharma Star and also Raseshwari Mataji, I'm sure will be watching later on also. So Dandavat pranams Raseshwari Mataji. Okay, Yamadūta Uchu Veda Prana Hito Dharma Ya Dharma Star Viparyaya Vedo Narayana Shakshat Swayambhur Iti Shushruma. The Yamadūtas replied, "That which is prescribed in the Vedas constitutes Dharma, the religious principles, and the opposite of that is irreligion. The Vedas are directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, and are self-born. This we have heard from Yamaraj." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The servants of Yamaraj replied quite properly. They did not manufacture principles of religion or irreligion. Instead, they explained what they had heard from the authority Yamaraj. Mahajano yena gata sapanta. One should follow the Mahajan, the authorized person. Yamaraj is one of the 12 authorities. Therefore, the servants of Yamaraj, the Yamadūtas, replied with perfect clarity when they said, Shushruma, we have heard. The members of modern civilization manufacture defective religious principles through speculative concoction. This is not Dharma. They do not know what is Dharma and what is adharma. Therefore, as stated in the beginning of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Dharma projita kaitavatra. That's second verse of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Dharma is not supported by the Vedas. Dharma not supported by the Vedas is rejected from Śrīmad-Bhāgavat Dharma. Bhagavat Dharma comprises only that which is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavat Dharma is Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. One must accept the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrender to Him and whatever He says. That is Dharma. Arjuna, for example, thinking that violence was adharma, was declining to fight, but Krishna urged him to fight. Arjuna abided by the orders of Krishna, and therefore he is actually a dharmi, because the order of Krishna is dharma. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Vedaishta sarver aham eva vedya. The real purpose of Veda knowledge is to know me. I was just reading about this topic, actually not reading, I was working on Srila Bhagavan Goswami Maharaj's letter late last night, and it was on this topic of Sarva Dharma Parityaja. Why does it say, he says to give up all dharma? Anyways, but then Srila Prabhupada explains the same thing. One who knows Krishna perfectly is liberated. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 4:9, Janma karma chame devyam evang yo veti tattvata tyakta deham punar janma naiti mam eti sorjunam. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. One who understands Krishna and abides by his order is a candidate for returning home back to Godhead. It may be concluded that dharma, religion, refers to that which is ordered in the Vedas, and adharma, irreligion, refers to that which is not supported in the Vedas. Dharma is not actually manufactured by Narayan. As stated in the Vedas, Asya Mahato Bhutasya Nishvasitam Etad Yad Rig Veda Iti. The injunctions of Dharma emanate from the breathing of Narayan, the supreme living entity. Narayan exists eternally and breathes. Narayan exists eternally and breathes eternally, and therefore Dharma, the injunctions of Narayan, also exists eternally. Srila Madhvacharya, the original acharya for those who belong to the Madhva Gauriya Sampradaya, says, Vedaham pratama vakta harireva yato vibhu ato vishvatmaka veda ityahur vedavadinam. The transcendental words of the Vedas emanated from the mouth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Vedic principles should be understood to be Vaishnava principles, because Vishnu is the origin of the Vedas. The Vedas contain nothing besides the instructions of Vishnu, and one who follows the Vedic principles is a Vaishnava. The Vaishnava is not a member of a manufactured community of this material world. A Vaishnava is a real knower of the Vedas, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Vedaishta sarvar aham eva vedya. It's Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Yena swadhamni amibhava rajasattva tamo maya guna nama kriya rupar vibhavyante yata tatam. The supreme cause of all causes, Narayan, is situated in his own abode in the spiritual world, but nevertheless, He controls the entire cosmic manifestation according to the three modes of material nature, sattva-gun, rajogun, and tamagun. In this way, all living entities are awarded different qualities, different names such as Brahman, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, different duties according to the Varnashram institution, and different forms. Thus, Narayan is the cause of the entire cosmic manifestation. Purport. The Vedas inform us, Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate, natatshamaschabhyadikascha drishyate, parasa shaktir vividhaiva shruyate, swabhaviki jnana palakriya cha. That's from the Shveta Shvatar Upanishad 6.8. Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is almighty and omnipotent. He has multifarious energies, and therefore he is able to remain in his own abode and without endeavor supervise and manipulates the entire cosmic manifestation through the interaction of the three modes of material nature, Sattvagun, Rajogun, and Tamagun. These interactions create different forms, bodies, activities, and changes, which all occur perfectly. Because the Lord is perfect, everything works as if he were directly supervising and taking part in it. Atheistic men, however, being covered by the three modes of material nature, cannot see Narayan to be the supreme cause behind all activities. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7.13, Tribir guna mayar bhavar ebi sarvam idam jagat mohitam nabijanati mam ebhya param avyayam. Deluded by the three modes, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. Because unintelligent agnostics are mohita, illusioned by the three modes of material nature, they cannot understand that Narayan, Krishna, is the supreme cause of all activities, as stated in Brahma Samhita, the first verse. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchid Ananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme controller. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, for he is the prime cause of all causes. Suryogni Kamaru Deva Soma Sandhyahani Disha Kamku Swayam Dharma Iti Hete Dahyasya Shakshina. The sun, fire, sky, air, demigods, moon, evening, day, night, directions, water, land, and Supersoul himself all witness the activities of the living entity. Purport. The members of some religious sects, especially Christians, do not believe in the reactions of karma. We once had a discussion with a learned Christian professor who argued that although people are generally punished after the witnesses of their misdeeds are examined, where are the witnesses responsible for one suffering the reactions of past karma? To such a person, the answer by the Yamadūtas is given here. A conditioned soul thinks that he is working stealthily and that no one else can see his sinful activities. But we can understand from the Shastras that there are many witnesses, including the sun, fire, sky, air, moon, demigods, evening, day, night, directions, water, land, and the Supersoul himself, who sits with the individual soul within his heart. Where is the dearth of witnesses? That's something I really love in our culture or in our teachings, is that everything is conscious, and so we don't just treat everything as some dead objects, but they actually have everything has consciousness. Everything has a presiding deity behind it. So where is the dearth of witnesses? The witnesses and the Supreme Lord both exist. and therefore so many living entities are elevated to higher planetary systems, are degraded to lower planetary systems, including the hellish planets. There are no discrepancies. There are no discrepancies, for everything is arranged perfectly by the management of the Supreme God. The witnesses mentioned in this verse are also mentioned in other Vedic literatures. Aditya Chandrav Anilo Nalascha Dyor Bhumiraplo Hridayam Yamascha Ahascharatris Cha Ube Cha Sande Dharmo Pijanati Narasya Vritam. Okay, text 43. Etar adharmo vigyata stanam dandasya yujate sarve karmanurodhena dandam arhanti karina. Okay, sorry guys. I went to sleep late and I'm keep on getting myself more comfortable. So probably should sit up. Anyways, whatever. The candidates for punishment are those who are confirmed by these many witnesses to have deviated from their prescribed regulative duties. Everyone engaged in fruitive activities is suitable to be subjected to punishment according to his sinful acts. Sambhavanti hibadrani viparitani chanaga karinam gunasangosti dehavan nahyakarmakrit. O inhabitants of Vaikuntha, you are sinless, but those within this material world are all karmis, whether acting piously or impiously. Both kinds of action are possible for them because they are contaminated by the three modes of nature and must act accordingly. One who has accepted a material body cannot be inactive, and a sinful action is inevitable for one acting under the modes of material nature. Therefore, all the living entities within this material world are punishable. Purport: the difference between human beings and non-human beings is that a human is supposed to act according to the direction of the Vedas. Unfortunately, men manufacture their own ways of acting without reference to the Vedas. Therefore, all of them commit sinful actions and are punishable. Yena yavanyata dharmo veda samihita sa eva tatphalam bhunkte tatha tavad amutravai. In proportion to the extent of one's religious or irreligious actions in this life, one must enjoy or suffer the corresponding reactions of his karma in the next. Purport: as stated in Bhagavad Gita 14:18. Urdhvam gachanti sattvasta madhye tishtanti rajasa jaganya guna vrittista ado gachanti tamasa. Those who act in the mode of goodness are promoted to higher planetary systems to become demigods. Those who act in an ordinary way and do not commit excessively sinful acts remain within this middle planetary system. And those who perform abominable sinful actions must go down to hellish life. Oh, Krishna. Yateta deva text 46. Yateha deva pravaras traivedhyam upalabhyate bhuteshu gunavaichitryat tatanyatram numiyate. O best of the demigods, we can see three different varieties of life, which are due to the contamination of the three modes of nature. The living entities are thus known as peaceful, restless, and foolish, as happy, unhappy, or in between, or as religious, irreligious, and semi-religious. We can deduce that in the next life, these three kinds of material nature will similarly act. Purport: the actions and reactions of the three modes of material nature are visible in this life. For example, some people are very happy, some are very distressed, and some are in mixed happiness and distress. This is the result of past association of the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Since these varieties are visible in this life, we may assume that the living entities, according to their association with the different modes of material nature, will be happy, distressed, or in between the two in their next lives also. Therefore, the best policy is to disassociate oneself from the from the three modes of material nature, and always be transcendental to their contamination. This is possible only when one fully engages in the devotional service of the Lord, as Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samitityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service and who does not fall down under any circumstance at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the spiritual platform. Unless one is fully absorbed in the service of the Lord, one is subject to the contamination of the three modes of material nature and must therefore suffer from distress or mixed happiness and distress. Vartamano nyayo kalo guna vigyapako yata evam janmanyayor etad dharma nidarshanam. Just as springtime in the present indicates the nature of springtimes in the past and future, so this life of happiness, distress, or mixture of both gives evidence concerning the religious and irreligious activities of one's past and future lives. Purport. Our past and future are not very difficult to understand, for time is under the contamination of the three modes of material nature. As soon as spring arrives, the usual exhibition of various types of fruits and flowers automatically become manifest, and therefore we may conclude that spring in the past was adorned with similar fruits and flowers and will be so adorned in the future also. Our repetition of birth and death is taking place within time, and according to the influence of the modes of nature, we are receiving various types of bodies and being subjected to various conditions. Manasaiva pure deva purvarupam vipashyati anumimam shate purvam manasa bhagavanaja. The omnipotent Yamaraj is as good as Lord Brahma, for while situated in his own abode or in everyone's heart like the Paramatma, he mentally observes the past activities of a living entity and thus understands how the living entity will act in future lives. Purport. One should not consider Yamaraj an ordinary living being. He is as good as Lord Brahma. He has the complete cooperation of the Supreme Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart, and therefore, by the grace of the Supersoul, he can see past, present, and future of a living being from within. The word anumimangsate means that he can decide in consultation with the Supersoul. Anu means following. The actual decisions concerning the next lives of the living entities are made by the Supersoul, and they are carried out by Yamaraj. Yatagyastamasa yukta upaste vyaktamevahi hi naveda purvamaparam nashta janma smritistata. As a sleeping person acts according to the body manifested in his dreams and accepts it to be himself, so one identifies with his present body, which he acquired because of his past religious or irreligious actions, and is unable to know his past or future lives. Purport. A man engages in sinful activities because he does not know what he did in his past life to get his present materially conditioned body, which is subjected to the threefold miseries. As stated by Rishabdev in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 5.5.4, Nunam pramatte kurute vikarma. A human being who is mad after sense gratification does not hesitate to act sinfully. Yad indriya pritaya aprinoti. He performs sinful actions simply for sense gratification. Nasadu manye. This is not good. Yato atmano yam asan apikleshada asadeha. Because of such sinful actions, one receives another body in which to suffer as he is suffering in his present body because of his past sinful activities. It should be understood that a person who does not have Vedic knowledge always acts in ignorance of what he has done in the past, what he is doing at the present, and how he will suffer in the future. He is completely in darkness. Therefore, the Vedic injunction is tamasima. Don't remain in darkness. Jyotirgama. Try to go to the light. That's the name of my niece, actually, Jyotirgama. The light or illumination is Vedic knowledge, which one can understand when he is elevated to the mode of goodness, or when he transcends the mode of goodness by engaging in devotional service to the spiritual master and the Supreme Lord. This is described in the Shvetashvatar Upanishad 6.23. Yasya deve para bhaktir yata deve tata guru tasaite katita hyarta prakashante mahatmana. Unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master, all the imports of Vedic knowledge are automatically revealed. That's from Shvetashvatar Upanishad 6.23. Atha Shri Krishna namadi na bhaver graham indriyai sevan mukhe hi jivadho swayameva spuratyatha. No one can understand Krishna as he is by the blunt material senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service unto him. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.234. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tatvata tato mam tatvato gyatva vishate tar anantaram. One can understand the Supreme Personality as he is, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of the Supreme Lord by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. It's Bhagavad Gita 18:55. These are Vedic instructions. One must have full faith in the words of the spiritual master and similar faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then the real knowledge of Atma and Paramatma and the distinction between matter and spirit will be automatically revealed. This Atma Tattva, or spiritual knowledge, will be revealed within the core of a devotee's heart because of having taken shelter at the lotus feet of a Mahaja, such as Prahlad Maharaj. Okay. Unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master, all the purports of the Vedic knowledge are automatically revealed. Okay, I don't think that was here. This is so messy. See, it just added this section, which I don't think is in the original purport. And then here also. The Vedas enjoin tad vigyanartam sagurum eva pikachet. See, and I don't think this is here either. This is all messed up. Anyways, one must approach a spiritual master who has full knowledge of the Vedas and be faithfully directed by him in order to become a devotee of the Lord. Then the knowledge of the Vedas will be revealed. When the Vedic knowledge is revealed, one need no longer remain in the darkness of material nature. According to his association of the material modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, a living entity gets a particular type of body. The example of one who associates with the mode of goodness is a qualified Brahman. Such a Brahman knows past, present, and future because he consults the Vedic literature and sees through the eyes of Shastra Chakshu. He can understand what his past life was, why he is in the present body, and how he can obtain liberation from the clutches of Maya and not accept another material body. This is all possible when one is situated in the mode of goodness. Generally, however, the living entities are engrossed in the modes of passion and ignorance. In any case, one receives an inferior or superior body at the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, as stated in the previous verse, Manasaiva Puredeva Purva Rupam Vipashati Anumi Mamkshate Purvam Manasa Bhagavanaja. Everything depends on Bhagavan, or Aja, the unborn. Why doesn't one please Bhagavan to receive a better body? The answer is Agyas Tamasa, because of gross ignorance. One who is in complete darkness cannot know what his past life was or what his next life will be. He is simply interested in his present body. Even though he has a human body, a person in the mode of ignorance and interested only in this present body is like an animal. For an animal, being covered by ignorance, thinks that the ultimate goal of life and happiness is to eat as much as possible. A human being must be educated to understand his past life and how he can endeavor for a better life in the future. There is even a book called Bhrigu Samhita, which reveals information about one's past, present, and future lives according to astrological calculations. Somehow or other, one must be enlightened about his past, present, and future. One who is interested only in his present body and who tries to enjoy his senses to the fullest extent is understood to be engrossed in the mode of ignorance. His future is very, very dark. Indeed, the future is always dark for one who is grossly covered by ignorance. Especially in this age, human society is covered by the mode of ignorance, and therefore everyone thinks his present body to be everything, without consideration of the past or future. All right, the last 5 verses. How much time do we have left? We have 12 minutes. Panchavi kurute svartan, panchavedata panchavi, ekastu so dashenatrin, swayam sapta dashoshnute. Above the 5 senses of perception, the 5 working senses, and the 5 objects of the senses is the mind. Okay, the mind's above the 5 working senses and the 6 objects. And the mind is the 16th element. Above the mind is the 17th element, the soul, the living being himself, who, in cooperation with the other 16, enjoys the material world alone. The living being enjoys 3 kinds of situations, namely being happy, distressful, and mixed happiness and distress. Purport. Everyone engages in work with his hands, legs, and other senses just to achieve a certain goal according to his concocted ideas. One tries to enjoy the 5 sense objects, namely form, sound, taste, aroma, and touch, not knowing the actual goal of life, which is to satisfy the Supreme Lord. Because of disobeying the Supreme Lord, one is put into material conditions, and then he tries to improve his situation in a concocted way, not desiring to follow the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nevertheless, the Supreme Lord is so kind that he comes himself to instruct the bewildered living entity how to act obediently and then gradually return home back to Godhead, where he can attain an eternal, peaceful life of bliss and knowledge. The living entity has a body which is a very complicated combination of the material elements, and with his body he struggles alone, as indicated in this verse by the words ekastu. For example, if one is struggling in the ocean, he must swim through it alone. Although many other men and aquatics are swimming in the ocean, he must take care of himself. Because no one else will help him. Therefore, this verse indicates that the 17th item, the soul, must work alone. Although he tries to create society, friendship, and love, no one will be able to help him but Krishna, the Supreme Lord. Therefore, his only concern should be how to satisfy Krishna. This is also what Krishna wants. Sarvadhamma prityaja mamekam sharanam praja. Bhagavad Gita 1866. People bewildered by material conditions try to be united, but although they strive for unity among men and nations, all their attempts are futile. Everyone must struggle alone for existence with the many elements of nature. Therefore, one's only hope, as Krishna advises, is to surrender to him, for he can help one become free from the ocean of nescience. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore prayed, Ainandatanu Kinkaram Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tava Para Pankajas Titaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya. O Krishna, beloved son of Nanda Maharaj, I am your eternal servant. Yet somehow or other, I have fallen into this ocean of nescience, and although I am struggling very hard, there is no way I can save myself. If you kindly pick me up and fix me as one of the particles of dust at your lotus feet, that will save me. In a similar way, Bhaktivinoda Thakur sang, Anadi karama phale paribhavar nava jale tori bare na deki upay tori bare na deki upay. Oh, my dear Lord, I cannot remember when I somehow or other fell into this ocean of nescience, and now I find no ways to rescue myself. We should remember that everyone is responsible for his own life. And if an individual becomes a pure devotee of Krishna, he is then delivered from the ocean of nescience. Oh man. Now I'm starting to feel more tired. Taritat sodasha kalam lingam shakti trayam mahat dhatte no sangsitim pungsi harsha shoka bayartitam. The subtle body is endowed with 16 parts. The 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, the 5 working senses, and the 5 objects of sense gratification, and the mind. This subtle body is an effect of the 3 modes of material nature. It is composed of insurmountably strong desires, and therefore it causes the living entity to transmigrate from one body to another in human life. To human life, animal life, where was I? Human life, animal life, and life as a demigod. When a living entity gets the body of a demigod, he is certainly very jubilant. When he gets the body of a human, when he gets a human body, he is always in lamentation. And when he gets the body of an animal, he is always afraid. In all conditions, however, he is actually miserable. His miserable condition is called sangsriti, or transmigration in material life. Purport: the sum and substance of material conditional life is explained in this verse. The living entity, the 7th element, is struggling alone, life after life. This struggle is called samsriti, or material conditional life. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the force of material nature is insurmountably strong. Daivi hesha gunamai mama maya durataya. Material nature harasses the living entity in different bodies, but if the living entity surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he becomes free from this entanglement, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Mameva ye prapadyante mayam etan tarantite. Thus his life becomes successful. Deyago jita sharvargo nechan karmani karyate koshakara ivatmanam karmana chayamuhyati. The foolish embodied living entity, inept at controlling his senses and mind, is forced to act according to the influence of the modes of material nature, against his desires. He is like a silkworm that uses his own saliva and creates a cocoon and then becomes trapped in it, with no possibility of getting out. The living entity traps himself in a network of his own fruitive activities and then can find no way to release himself. Thus he is always bewildered, and repeatedly he dies. Purport. As it already explains, the influence of the modes of nature is very strong. The living entity is entangled in different types of fruitive activity, like a silkworm trapped in a cocoon. Getting free is very difficult unless one is helped by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nahi kashtik kshanamapi. Oh, this is a very famous verse. Yeah, I've seen this verse so many times. Nahi kashtik kshanamapi jatu tishtata karma krit karyate hyavasha karma gunai swabhavikar balat. Yeah, this is an important verse to memorize by heart. Not a single living entity can remain unengaged, even for a moment. One must act by his natural tendency, according to the three modes of material nature, because this natural tendency forcibly makes him work in a particular way. Purport. The subhavika, or one's natural tendency, is the most important factor in action. One's natural tendency is to serve, because the living entity is an eternal servant of God. The living entity wants to serve, but because of his forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord, he serves under the modes of material nature and manufactures various modes of service, such as socialism, humanitarianism, and altruism. However, one should be enlightened in the tenets of Bhagavad Gita and accept the instruction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that give one sorry. What the heck? Sorry. Let me shut this off. I don't know how that started. Okay, sorry. So, one serves the Lord under the modes of material nature and manufactures various modes of service, such as socialism, humanitarianism, and altruism. However, one should be enlightened in the tenets of Bhagavad Gita and accept the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that one give up all natural tendencies for material service under different names and take to the service of the Lord. One's original natural tendency is to act in Krishna consciousness because one's real nature is spiritual. The duty of a human being is to understand that since he is essentially spirit, he must abide by the spiritual tendency and not be carried away by material tendencies. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has therefore sung, Niche mayar bashe, jacho bhese, kacho ha budu bhuvai, Radha Krishna bo, bolore sabai. My dear brothers, you are being carried away by the waves of material energy and are suffering in many miserable conditions. Sometimes you are drowning in the waves of material nature, and sometimes you are tossed like a swimmer struggling in the ocean. As confirmed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, this tendency to be battered by the waves of Maya can be changed to one's original natural tendency, which is spiritual, when the living entity comes to understand that he is eternally Krishnadas, a servant of God, Krishna. Jiva Krishna Das, Eveshvas Korleto Ardukanai, Radha Krishna Bobo, Bolore Sabai. If, instead of serving Maya under different names, one turns his service attitude toward the Supreme Lord, he is then safe, and there's no more difficulty. If one returns to his original, natural tendency in the human form of life by understanding the perfect knowledge given by Krishna himself in the Vedic literature, one's life becomes successful. We have two more verses. Labdva nimittamavyakhtam vyakta vyaktam bhavatyuta yatayoni yata bijam sabhavena valiyasa. The fruit of activities a living being performs, whether pious or impious, are the unseen cause for the fulfillment of his desires. This unseen cause is the root for the living entity's different bodies. Because of his intense desire, the living entity takes birth in a particular family and receives a body which is either like that of his mother or like that of his father. The gross and subtle bodies are created according to his desire. Purport. The gross body is a product of the subtle body, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 8.6. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tang tamevaiti konteya sadatar bhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. The atmosphere of the subtle body at the time of death is created by the activities of the gross body. Thus, the gross body acts during one's lifetime, and the subtle body acts at the time of death. The subtle body, which is called linga, the body of desire, is the background for the development of a particular type of gross body, which is either like that of one's mother or like that of one's father. According to the Rig Veda, if at the time of sex the secretions of the mother are more profuse than those of the father, the child will receive a female body, and if the secretions of the father are more profuse than those of the mother, the child will receive a male body. These are the subtle laws of nature, which act according to the desire of the living entity. If a human being is taught to change his subtle body by developing a consciousness of Krishna, at the time of death, the subtle body will create a gross body in which he will be a devotee of Krishna. Or, if he is still more perfect, he will not take another material body, but will immediately get a spiritual body, and thus return home back to Godhead. This is the process of the transmigration of the soul. Therefore, instead of trying to unite human society through pacts for sense gratification that can never be achieved, it is clearly desirable to teach people how to become Krishna conscious and return home back to Godhead. This is true now and indeed at any time. Okay, last verse. Esha prakriti sangena purushasya viparyaya asetsa eva nachirat Esha sangar viliyate. Since the living entity is associated with material nature, he is in an awkward position. But if, in the human form of life, he is taught how to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee, this position can be overcome. Purport. The word Prakriti means material nature, and Purush may also refer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one wants to continue his association with Prakriti, the female energy of Krishna, and be separated from Krishna by the illusion that he is able to enjoy Prakriti, he must continue in his conditional life. If he changes his consciousness, however, and associates with the Supreme Original Person, Purusham Shashvatam, or with his associates, he can get out of the entanglement of material nature. As confirmed, so if the Lord associates with the original person or the original person's associates, Krishna's parikar vrinda, then he can get out of material nature. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvata. One must simply understand the Supreme Person Krishna in terms of his form, name, activities, and pastimes. This will keep one always in the association of Krishna. Takta deham punar janma naiti mameti sorjuna. That's Bhagavad Gita 5.9. Thus, after giving up his gross material body, one accepts not another gross body, but a spiritual body in which to return home back to Godhead. Thus one ends the tribulation caused by his association with the material energy. In summary, the living entity is an eternal servant of God, but he comes to the material world and is bound by material conditions because of his desire to lord it over material matter. Sorry, I don't know why I said material. Because of his desire to lord it over matter. Liberation means giving up this false consciousness and reviving one's original service to the Lord. This return to one's original life is called mukti, as confirmed in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, muktir hitva, in the verse, muktir hitvan yata rupam swarupena vyavastiti. All right, Jai Shri Radhe. Tomorrow we will finish up these answers of Yamaraj, and then we'll hear the Viṣṇudūtas again. Alright. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Ju ki Jai, Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupara Shatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Vigyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupara Shatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki Jai, Nitil Pravishta Mahabhagavat Srila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj ki Jai, Nitil Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Jai, Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai, Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki Jai, Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Dashaguna Shara Gosai Prabhu ki Jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanantari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki Jai, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki Jai, प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय, श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जय, सर्व अभिष्ट विराट गिरिराज महाराज की जय, श्री राधा कुंज श्याम कुंज की जय, श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय, श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय, श्री भक्ति देवी की जय, श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय, श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय, श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय, श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवाश्चात कृष्ण भक्ति प्रदेवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः। पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। Dandavat pranams everybody. I'm in a really anyways, I was doing okay, but then towards the end I started falling asleep. I'm in a really bad cycle right now. It's hard for me to break out. But yeah, I've been going to sleep every day at like 12:30, 1. Last night was near 2 o'clock in the morning, I think. I laid down after 1, and then I couldn't fall asleep. And so then I just stayed up. I mean, I did sleep in a little bit. I woke up at 6 o'clock this morning. So I slept for like 4 hours, I guess. No, less than 4. No, yeah, 4 hours. Yeah, 4 hours. But anyhow, I need to break out of this cycle so you guys don't have to hear me falling asleep while I read every morning. Anyways, sorry about that. All right, Haribol. And tonight I'm going to go to sleep early, and I'm not going to fall asleep in morning time. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class. Yes, okay. I make a promise to you right now. Hopefully I don't break it. All right, see you tomorrow. Haribol.